Hi everyone and welcome to my review of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, directed by Peter Hunt in 1969. And this is the sixth Bond film, and one of the three Bonds which I'd never seen before going into this rewatch. And it's famous for George Lazenby taking over briefly for his his one and only Bond film from Sean Connery, and obviously Sean Connery at the time, he said he had quit. He would return for Diamonds Are Forever. And obviously as well the unofficial Never Say Never Again. But this was Lazenby's film, his one and only one, and he's still, I would say, he's probably the least popular Bond, along with Roger Moore maybe. And I was really looking forward to this one because I'd heard quite a few people put it, right at the top of the ranking of the Bonds. And, as soon as I heard it focused more on the character and romance and more of a realistic portrayal of the romance, I was really intrigued, but I was not ready for what I experienced, because for me this is one of the very best Bonds and it's absolutely stunning. I was blown away by this film, and George Lazenby I think is a great Bond. It's actually a shame I think he didn't return for more, but you could say as well that it made this film more special, and I still don't think Sean Connery would have done as well in this film if he had returned again, because you could see in You Only Live Twice he was very disinterested, and who knows, he could have given an even worse performance in this one. And I think Lazenby was right, a right choice. He's still got the charm, the grace. He can be witty as well. And ruthless and stuff. He's not as good as Sean Connery was in his prime with like Goldfinger from Russia with Love, but I think he's a really good Bond. And I'm not too sure why he still gets a lot of hate, really. And the pre-title sequence I thought was brilliant. We're straight away introduced to the Bond girl played by Diana Rigg, and of course Lazenby. And there's loads of obviously fight scenes and stuff, but there's like an instant connection between the two of them, and then he does this fourth wall break, which then goes into the credits, which are brilliant. John Barry's score is one of the best in the Bond film. It's just an instrumental one, so it's a return to, say, it's kind of like Dr. No from Russia with Love, as opposed to actual singing in the credits, and it's just brilliant. And later on in the film, which we'll get to, it's used perfectly in the action. And the titles, they show previous Bond films as well. Little clips from it, which I thought was really good. It's kind of like a culmination of all the previous Bonds. And the first act instantly, it was much more character driven, and they focused a lot more on the relationship between the Bond girl and Bond himself. And I just had, this was crucial, really, because it gave me something to root for throughout the rest of the film. Of course, as well as the actual plot itself, but it gave me something to think about and kind of, root for, even when she wasn't in the film, really, which was mainly the middle act. And I just thought it was just perfectly done. The use of We Have All the Time in the World, which was obviously John Barry who composed it, and then Louis Armstrong's son. And it was just perfectly used. The scenes where they're kind of falling in love. And it's just such a perfect song to use for the romance, which was wonderful. And also, of course, we're introduced to her father, Draco, who basically agrees to help Bond sort of infiltrate the hideout of Blofeld if he agrees to marry Tracy. And Blofeld in this film, played by Telly Savalas, I think he's definitely the best Blofeld. I was a bit disappointed with Donald Pleasance in You Only Live Twice. I just thought it was a bit too silly, and as well, the way they didn't even have him really much screen time of him, and it was kind of at the end of the film. It was a bit disappointing, but in this film, I think it definitely delivered. Definitely the best Blofeld. So after this, Bond heads to Switzerland. And he's in disguise as Hilary Bray. He pretends to be, and he eventually reaches the hideout of Blofeld. And I thought all these scenes, with Blofeld and the unravelling of the plot was just brilliant. And Blofeld, obviously, as I said, is just a great performance here. And the plot was really interesting. And then we've got a lot of comedy in there as well. And I really liked the henchwoman of Blofeld. I think it was Irma Blunt. I thought she was really good in it as well. But as well as the humour, you've got the gradual build-up of tension, and once Bond finds out what's going on with Blofeld, and he tries to escape, this is when the film really becomes just one of the best in cinema. Specifically here, the final 45 minutes, maybe even the hour. It's just cinematic perfection, really. Once Diana Rigg returns again as well, it's just brilliant. And the action in this film is, for me, certainly up until this point, it was the best action. And the final sequences on the slopes, just some of the best in cinema action. The way the music was used as well, the editing, perfect. And the score by John Barry is just perfectly suited to the action here. And because of the romance and the way Diana Rigg comes back into it, and other characters as well, it just kind of elevates it. And there's just so much going on, and it's just so well balanced. The humour, the action, the romance, and it's just perfectly directed and edited. It's just beautiful to look at as well, the film, and it's just such a graceful film. Really, this really took me by surprise overall. And the last sort of 15 minutes as well, wow, really hit me. It's definitely for me the most emotional Bond, the most beautiful Bond, and really overall it has definitely one of the best action sequences in a Bond film. So overall, this really took me by surprise. I think this is a perfect film, let alone a perfect Bond film, and the fact that I cared so much for the characters and the romance, and the action was just so mind-blowing, especially the last sequences. The editing, the directing, everything. Everyone involved in this film just done a great job. Flawless job, really. And the score, the John Barry score, and the use of it was just perfect. It hit all the right notes. The music was used just perfectly throughout to convey all the different emotions. And it kind of had an epic feel as well to it. I think up until this point it was the longest Bond film. It's good because it takes its time to develop the characters, the relationships more, and then once the payoff means it just means the payoff is much greater. And for me, Diana Rigg, easily the best Bond girl. She's just flawless, perfect choice of casting. And every single act I was completely invested in, everything that was going on. And that ending as well, just the best Bond ending for me, and one of the best in cinema. So I think I'm going to have to give this film 100% plus, tier 1. Wow, that's reserved for me for some of the finest films ever made. It's not quite my highest rating, but really it's the highest praise I can give this film. I was moved, I was invested in the characters, I was in awe of the action throughout. Every element of cinema came together here. It had the most epic feel of a Bond for me. I just loved everyone in the roles, and every single moment really I was just engaged in, and all the way up until the ending, which really just, again, as I say, one of the best in cinema. I was blown away by this film, and I imagine it will only get better with repeated viewings, because, as I say, I've only seen this once. This was my first viewing, and usually with films that I love this much, they kind of just grow over time. And I think it will be very hard to top this. As the Bond series may go on for years and years, but very few films, I think, will top this one for me. So thanks for watching my review. Next up is Diamonds Are Forever. Sean Connery returning again, so we'll review that next. check out my other reviews on my channel if you please, and thanks for watching.